Welcome back to the Foundation in C# course. We are currently in Module 9. And this lesson, we're going to introduce this whole section on SQL database design. Now, what we're going to do in this section is we're going to build our SQL database in what's called SQL Server Data Tools. We did this in Module 8 when we created our SQL Server database. So you should be familiar with how to do this. We're going to build out our different tables, and we'll also build out our script to do starter data. Okay, so that's the thing we're going to do in this section. Now, later on in the course, when we actually start to use our SQL database, we may have to create some queries or stored procedures. We'll do that when we need to. We don't want to anticipate what we need and get it wrong. So we're going to make sure we get it right the first time by doing just the tables in this section. So let's talk about our tip before we move on to the next lesson. And our tip for today is that SQL is all about normalization. Use queries to better match your app to your database. So what we're talking about there is the idea that you don't want to match or conform your database to your application. That's backwards. You want to build your database in a way that's the most efficient for storing and retrieving data. That's what you want to do. Then you want your application to be as efficient as possible in using that data, capturing data, storing that into SQL, those kind of things. You want to be as efficient as possible on the C# side of things. That does mean there'll be a disconnect between how your database is structured and how your app is structured, and that's okay. Do it that way, and then it's the part of your data access code to have a bridge for that gap. The gap between how your data is laid out in C# and how your data is stored in SQL. So make sure you concentrate in this section on normalization. We've already done that with how we laid out our various tables or our various groups of data. Okay, but think things through. Don't just have an address 1, an address 2, an address 3 column. You want to have the idea of, if we're going to store addresses, we're going to have multiple, we want to have that as a separate table. Okay, so it comes to rooms. We're not going to put inside the room table, we won't have all the information about what type of room it is. We're just going to have a link to the room types table, because otherwise, we have repetition in our data. That's something you want to avoid. Okay? So that's your pro tip. Let's move on to the next lesson where we're going to start building out our SQL database.